All right, welcome everyone to an Apokalupsis Historia live event on a Friday evening. Thank you so much for joining us. You're joining the Baseball Cap Bros. We got Brady here tonight, of course, with my co-host Chance, and we're here to talk some Shakespeare. Probably one of our favorite Shakespeare plays. If you've watched any of our top 10 or top 5 or whatever, maybe even top 100 even. I don't know if you snuck into that top 15 or whatever. We're here to talk about Timon of Athens tonight. And just like all the other last couple plays we've been talking about, we're going to go over the general history, and then we're going to try to dive into maybe the deeper philosophical aspects of this play. And hey, this one, as we've kind of mentioned before, a Herman Melville, a Vladimir Nabokov favorite. So hey, we've got some got some real big hard hitters here in the literary sphere that's been maybe saying we're sleeping on this play. Before we do that tonight, we're just going to get some housekeeping out of the way real quick. If you are interested, I have officially now opened up the Apokalupsis Discord to the public. So now the link is down below in the description box. So if you want to come and lurk on the server and kind of see what we're up to, feel free to come join on by now, because it is no longer a paid only thing, as we wanted to try to open up the community a little more. But if you would like to support the channel, the Areopagus Book Club is still premium member access exclusive only. So big way to help the channel if you want to come support us on Patreon or Substack as well. I also have all of our links to our essays down below from Substack, so make sure you drop on by any of those links as well. And if you know anyone in the homeschool space or anyone that just wants to, especially, once again, I've kind of geared this class that I'm developing for middle and high schoolers. We're going to be diving into a lot of the classics, with something like the Odyssey now in theaters. If maybe you saw it, and hey, if you want to take a look at it for yourself, but maybe it kind of feels a little daunting or not, and you want someone to kind of help walk you through it, I'm going to be starting with the Iliad first. So if you know anyone that's maybe interested in having someone like us, or me perhaps, kind of go through the text with someone and kind of help a younger mind maybe start to appreciate this classics, right? You want to get them off the video games? Hey, let's put them in some books. So make sure you check out my website, kleosclassics.com, if you know anyone that would be interested in that. But otherwise, I think without further ado, we're going to be talking about Timon of Athens, okay? And like I said, we've already talked about this play so many times, in a general sense, I guess, maybe in all of our several read these top Shakespeare plays or plays that you've missed or blah, 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 and for good reason too. And I'll kind of start off here with my first impression of the play, and maybe I've already kind of said this before as a joke when we first started doing this whole endeavor. And I remember it was one of the plays that Chance over here, who's already kind of gone through the whole canon several times, and he's like, Brady, Timon of Athens, it's good. And I was a little skeptical. I was like, Timon of Athens? I haven't heard of that one, and I kind of feel like there's a reason I haven't heard of that one. I was like, oh man, like I don't know, I'm not sure what I'm gonna get into here. And man, blown away, absolutely loved it, really had a good time. And yeah, not only is it just sort of memorable in a sense, and yeah, just felt like there was a lot to chew on here. And I'm gonna tee up Chance here, because I think one of the themes that we're talking about here tonight is that not every single Shakespeare play is for everybody sometimes, right? Maybe some people kind of trend towards a history play, or they like their tragedy, or maybe they're more them comedies. But at least for our little kind of like little clique or little friend group that we kind of have here, our little more personal acquaintances, people that we've sort of like given different plays to, as sort of just been gauging reactions. It seems that maybe Timon's been having a pretty solid one. So yeah, the Chance, that's how I kind of got into this before we actually get into the nitty gritty of it. But yeah, what was your sort of first encounter with Timon, and what did you first think when you first stumbled upon it?
So, like you said, I similarly was a little trepidatious when trying to confront Timon, just because it's like, oh, this is one of those deep cuts, huh? And like, it's one thing when you hit a deep cut comedy, because it's like, I don't know, they're not good, they're not satisfying or something, but like Two Gentlemen of Verona, but you can kind of just, okay, that was stupid, and, go about your life. But like, a failed tragedy is something else entirely. And so, like, I don't know, I think that there's, anytime people come up against these deeper cut tragedies that's not Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet, like, with Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet, it's almost the opposite expectation. Like, everybody's going into it like, well, this is certifiably considered the greatest ever. Like, either, they're going to go in and be blown away, or even if they are dissatisfied, it's like they can say, oh well, this was probably a bad version, or this was but like it seems like across the board everybody is primed to think Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet and Macbeth and whichever are the greatest, and they go in and they watch it. Oh, this actually is that great. I get it. Okay, or they read it and okay, it is that great. And so like I don't know, with deeper cut Shakespeare's, like I don't know, like Titus, um, Timon, it's there aren't many deep cut tragedies, right? Like Coriolanus definitely. Um, um, but with those, like I don't know, there's always this like sense of there's something broken about this play because it's just not as popular as the others, and it becomes to be this like circular thing where oh Hamlet is that great because we say it's that great, and these others therefore aren't that great because they must not be that great, so we're not putting them on, and we're not putting them on because they're not that great. They're not that great, so we're not putting them on, and it becomes this horrible vicious circle. And I think one of the reasons that Timon started down that road, 100, 200, 300 years ago, because I don't think that it was like certain that Timon's not one of the great Shakespeare plays. I don't know that, it was certain that it was either. But I think this like growing sensibility that the play wasn't finished, that the play has too many loose ends, that the play is a little small for trying to be this 5 act play. It's pretty much just one storyline, and those unfinished ends that don't feel like they tie together. Those feel like attempts to make other storylines, and doesn't really quite come to fruition. And that's bizarre structurally for a Shakespeare play. Shakespeare tragedies don't usually feel this um, sloppy, I guess, is what some people might have said back in the day. And I don't know, reading through it, one can see all of that. But Brady and I personally argue that you can actually do that with a lot of plays. Like, it's not just Timon. Y'all just noticed it with Timon. You can do that with Macbeth. You can do that with, we were talking about the Henry VI plays at book club. You know, we've covered non-Shakespeare plays or apocryphal plays that you can do that with Arden, and whatever happened with that poison painting, right? Like, what the fuck was that about? Henry VI Part One. Why is Joan two different people? You can probably do this like you can do it with Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet too. I bet. In fact, yeah, you for sure can. Uh, you know, like with Romeo and Juliet, I'm trying to think off the top of my head where some discrepancies lie, but um, can you think of any of for Hamlet off the top of your head, Brady?
Like weird inconsistencies, or yeah,
Yeah,
I want
yeah,
to say that I don't know if there was something to do. I feel like there's weird things about maybe like when the play troupe is introduced, and there's things about I want to say I could be talking out, but I thought there was some weird thing about mentioning something and then yeah like re mentioning it again or something. It's definitely really bad in Henry the Part 6 where like bizarre lines or kind of just don't flow between one another. The
right.
one cardinal who turns into like a bishop halfway through or whatever. Um, I know that there's probably more. I just can't think off the top of my head. But
Yeah, and yeah, I was blanking on Hamlet. I was wondering maybe you had something too, but I know for sure Macbeth, right? Like they go and they report to Macduff, and Macduff's like, "How's my family?" They're like, "Oh, they're good." But we got to figure out this England stuff. Hold on, your family's dead, and it's like, wait, what was that about? What's and I don't know, just more generally,
and even in Macbeth, I guess like people will say the Hecate scene in the middle is also just like doesn't make any sense or it's just been tacked on or something like
yeah,
that. And we will get to Thomas Middleton maybe in this discussion tonight.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, just wanted to say that that I think Timon is a play has sort of historically gotten the bad end of the stick here, because people have sort of um, scapegoated Timon, like, oh, that's one of the bad plays, that's one of the weak plays, that's one of the unfinished plays, and I think it's like, in a dialectical sense, the trade off has been to help prop up some of the other plays, but Brady and I guess, are here tonight to tell everybody that this play really is one of the greats. This is absolutely spectacular. It's special, and it seems to just, for whatever reason, be landing really well with people in Brady and I's, age demographic, our demographic of sensibilities and background. If you want to call it white male millennials, you can. But like, straight up, every person I've tried to show this to, Shakespeare fan or not, sack person or not, um, super hardcore sack person or not, um, it's always a hit. And to contrast this with our book club, so the just want to make a quick distinction here. The title of our little thumbnail here, "Boomers Don't Get This Play." This is not a pot shot at you, David or Derek. Y'all are technically Gen Xers, at least according to my mother. Derek's for sure Gen X. Dave. My mom says you're Gen X, and she's your age. You know that. Just pointing that out. But I just want to say that it's not that boomers or Gen Xers or whoever don't get this play. It's just that it happens to speak to this millennial demographic, and I don't even think it's an age demographic necessarily, in the sense that it's. I don't think it's because millennials are particularly in this 20 to 40-year-old age bracket right now. Like, that may help, but I think this just works with millennials no matter what, because we're entitled. We're really, really, really entitled as a generation, and this is a play about entitlement and expectations, and not getting those expectations satisfied, and sort of how to psychologically deal with that, and how to cope with that, and um, or how not to cope with that, right? Um, and I don't know, like, you go back, too far, and we don't even have modern psychology. I think most people think about psychology as one of these, even early on 20th century, psychology is either this weird pseudoscience, or it's like an attack on Christianity, or it's um, at some point it's just not well received. Therapy is for softies. It took us, like, going through all the post nom stuff, I think, to like start to open up to, like, oh, maybe therapy can help people, kind of stuff. And I think until that movement happens in our modern paradigm, Timon's just harder to talk about, right? And I think now that we're in this modern mental health paradigm, we have a whole century of lexicon and understanding behind psychology. It can really open up Timon. And I'm not even a big fan of psychology or anything. I don't hate it or anything, but like, I'm not some psychologist, like our buddy James Dowling, who's like legitimately a top-notch psychologist and knows all sorts of. And he was also a fan of Timon of Athens, right? I'm a literary guy. I'm coming at this, as much through Nabokov and Melville and Hawthorne. There's probably several others that I'm blanking on, but yeah, this is one of those deep cuts that, like, it's your favorite author's favorite play kind of thing. If you want to put it that way, like, other than Hamlet, just your favorite author's favorite play other than Hamlet. Um, um, but yeah, so I don't know. We could go several routes here. We could go on a deep dive on just why exactly this works with millennials and go through the details of the play. We could go on some other tangents and relate it to some other philosophers, philosophy. We could get into esoteric and occult here. We could get into some Marxism stuff. Um, where did you want to go with Timon? The world is our oyster, Brady.
Yeah, I think it's a great setup, and yeah, I think you're totally right on your author's favorite author. And I'll tell a funny quick story because my wife and I were reading Charles Dickens' Great Expectations, and I was like finishing reading out loud a chapter, and she kind of stopped me, and she was like, totally non sequitur. She was like, "How come you don't do like more just general reviews of all these Shakespeare plays that y'all read all the time?" And I was like, "Yeah, we really just don't. Kind of just, hey, we just finished this one. Now we're just gonna talk about it. We just, I don't know. We usually kind of sit on it for a minute anyway before all this stuff kind of percolates up and we get these thoughts." But then I finished the chapter, and then literally it's like the next page, right? I haven't even flipped a page. It just went like this, and then all of a sudden Dickens is describing this character who gets up on a table or something, and I quote like, and he does a Timon of Athens or a Coriolanus, and it's like, yes, like the two the two plays, yeah, the two sleeper elitist plays that I'm trying to push all the time. So yeah, it's definitely getting referenced there. And to kind of talk also just more of this influence, right? And you brought this to my attention some time ago, like the Disney Renaissance, the great films, right? Lion King and Aladdin and all that stuff. Sleeping Beauty. How many of those were actually put on and sort of screenwrit by the same like two ladies or whatever, right? And yeah, to kind of bring it back to Lion King, one of the meerkat, right? His name is Timon, and lo and behold, what were they studying? For their education, yeah, they were dramatists, but yeah, specifically Shakespeare studies or something along those lines. So something
Yeah,
about
yeah,
just reading these texts definitely seems to open better products, maybe to some degree.
yeah, and that's Beauty and the Beast, not Sleeping Beauty, but yes.
Oh yeah, too
Uh,
the wrong
yeah,
beauty.
and, I absolutely love the term Disney Renaissance because yeah, it's not just literally this resurgence and revitalization of Disney animated films, which it was that. It was totally that because there was this giant lull in the '80s where, fun fact, that is the only decade of like modern filmmaking where Disney is not the top selling animated studio of the decade, like the only decade. And the top selling studio of the decade in the 1980s is Bluth Animations, who did like Land Before Time and Fievel Goes West. But like he made his own studio because he quit Disney. He used to work for Disney, and Disney didn't like the dark direction that he was going. He did this dark direction, and then they ended up trying to copycat him anyway. And then but yeah, these um this group of writers and animators came through in the late 80s early 90s, and they just said, let's like quit trying to fight fire with fire, and let's go back to the classics. Like let's quit playing on Bluth's territory, or Bluth's getting to make up whatever little story he wants, dinosaurs, dogs, whatever. They're like, let's quit doing that and let's go back to classics. And yeah, not just classics, like specifically mining Shakespeare. And I mean, so Beauty and the Beast, yeah, that's a old 18th century French novel. Little Mermaid, Hans Christian Andersen. Um, uh, Aladdin, that's classic golden age um, Arabic. What's it? Thousand Nights, 1001 Nights. Um, and then yeah, Lion King's obviously Hamlet. Um, and yeah, I think that's why right after that there is an end of Disney Renaissance. Because I mean, okay, Hunchback of Notre Dame's arguable, but yeah, Pocahontas is not a classic piece of literature. Like you could argue that's Romeo and Juliet, but it's really not. Maybe you could argue it's James Cameron's Avatar, and that's what makes it good literature. But no, my bad. Didn't mean to digress on the Disney Renaissance, but yeah, like literally, it's and so each of those movies has a character named after a Shakespeare character, right? Timon, Iago, Ariel. I don't think that that's true of Beauty and the Beast, but yeah.
There might be some general French name in there somewhere, like aha Pierre. There's a Pierre somewhere or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, just to talk about the influence of the play itself, and that we've got this titular character, because one of my favorite Shakespeare Renaissance trivia is like, oh, name a Disney film that has a Shakespeare character's name, and I'm always I don't think anyone's ever said Timon. Like people have even said Macbeth from like Gargoyles, but we don't even Timon. He's right there in front of us, and just kind of flying beneath the radar, and so just kind of leading people on that that this play is not only it's literally right sleeping right next to us, and we just still don't quite see it in that way yet. But maybe to kind of like go off here, I want to talk about a couple different things, because we've already I've already barely touched on this thing. I did a video that was kind of talking about Nabokov a lot, and I did another video about other stuff, the pale fire quote. We even did a whole thing about the engendering of toads, right? That was one of the other videos that we actually did a lot of, is about a parallel passage from Duchess of Malfi. And, hey, is John Webster writing part of this? Or, or is obviously just John Webster jacking from this play as well? But, we just talked about this specific paragraph, and just like how it was eerily very similar down to the engendering of toads sort of line as well. But a lot of other stuff at the same time. So even if it's still just influencing Webster, even if we don't want to say Webster's in this or not, so I want to go into like some philosophy stuff, and I also want to touch on some Shakespeare authorship question too, because there's lots of that in here as well. But maybe to kind of bring it back to, maybe this will kind of set us up before we get into it, because all right. So for the general spoilers, I guess spoilers for this play, just so we can kind of talk about the rest of the plot, because I can actually go off of the plot here. So the point is you got this character named Timon of Athens. He's got money, and he's kind of like he's Oprah Winfreying everybody, right? He's like, you get a banquet, and you get a horse, and like you get a thing, and he's always like one upping people. Usually, like they'll try to say thank you, and he's like even gonna one up that thank you. And so what eventually, just to kind of just run through the play real quick, he basically is giving out all these money, he's giving all these favors, and then at some point, his little servant dude's like, yo, dude, we don't have any money. Like, there's nothing left in the coffers, right? So Timon's like, it's all right. I got all these friends I've been, helping out. So he goes and asks all these different people for some cash, for some money. And they all pretty much just give him the runaround, give him the excuse about why they can't do that. And obviously he's hurt. And so he kind of like invites them for like one last banquet, and then basically sets him up, and all those people go back to his house thinking like, well, maybe Timon's got his stuff back together. Maybe we're going to get some gifts again. So they all go over there, and he pretty much tricks them, and that instead of doing this banquet, and the scene is that what he's going to do is that he's got all the tables laid out with with food, supposedly, right? He's got all these platter dishes covered up, and he says like, lap up, you dogs, and he pulls up the silver platter thing, and there's nothing but like water bowls there, right? Just bowls of water. And so he pretty much just like tells everybody off and leaves town, and is pretty much just like bumming it around in the wilderness, and other people go out there to try to reason with him or try to talk to him, and he's always just he's kind of denouncing everybody. And at some point he's like digging in the dirt, like just looking for like roots to eat, I guess, or whatever, right? And he literally, like, a man who's lost everything somehow stumbles upon like gold that is like dug, stuck in the ground, right? And then from there, the play gets a little wonky if you just want to read on this sort of orthodox level, but he kind of just like disappears, right? We don't really quite know what happens to him. We don't see him, like, it's not like full Shakespeare, like, oh, I die, he dies, right? We don't get anything like that. It's like the next scene, and all of a sudden, like, you get this soldier who's part of the subplot with the Alcibiades kind of coming in there, and finds like a tombstone, or not a tombstone, but a gravestone of sort, or an epitaph, or what's not an epitaph, or epitaph, right? And it goes and reports back to Athens, and they kind of tie up their little subplot with Alcibiades, who's kind of doing a Coriolanus sort of power trip sort of type thing. And there's weird conflicting stories about, did this gravestone say this or that? Like, we don't actually see Timon die on stage, and so he's just kind of gone, and that's kind of one of these big mysteries. That's actually also half the point of like Pale Fire, is like this whole conversation about, is this like part of the editorial hand? Like what, when you're reading something, how much is the editor and how much is the original author and all that sort of conversation too. But maybe just to assume that it's, that it's a cohesive play, that there's actually, that it's not like missing something, that it's not totally jarbled up or whatever. That's like kind of the basic point of the play. But some of the interesting things right off the bat that I kind of noticed when I first read it, and to kind of bring it back to one of our hallmarks of this channel, which is going to be some Philip Sidney discussion, is that you get this opening lines of there's a couple, or maybe there's like 3 dudes, there's definitely 2, and read it line for line in a minute, but yeah, right off the bat, you're going to get 2 characters who are kind of walking there, and they're both going to try to get some favors from, or they're going to go try to, butter up to Timon, and it's a painter and a poet. And they're both kind of having a back and forth about the merits of each of their trades or whatever, right? Like the painter's like, oh, I got this nice painting, and the poet's like, I'm gonna go spit some lines at him or whatever. And well, right off the bat, that definitely recalled to mind for me the Defensive Poesy by Philip Sidney and his whole tract on improving the English language and the English art form and blah 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 blah. And because there's a lot of this, obviously he's advocating for poetry. And he has the painter, or it's not like it's a prose or story or anything, but he lays out examples of like the painter not being able to rise to the level of the poet, and it's the exact same sort of discussion that's kind of happening here in the beginning. And maybe there's even like the exact lines I kind of forget. Maybe I have them lined up here, but yeah, right away. And this is even before we even see Timon. It's just, but they're talking about the value of each other's art, and I think value systems are going to be something we're going to be talking about the rest of the night anyway. So I wanted to just kind of like lead with that opening there. As I try to find some lines, Chance, did you have anything you want to add to that?
No, that's good. Because at some point this is one of the Shakespeare plays, or at least one of the moments in a Shakespeare play where it does seem to be in direct conversation with defensive poetry. And Oxfordians will say that it is, but that's Sidney responding to Shakespeare rather than the other way around. And now that we're bringing up Oxfordians, this is like one of the plays that does seem to be inspired by or influenced by Edward de Vere. Like, and I know Oxfordians, anybody that's an Oxfordian listening, is like, what do you mean the one play? Well, just one of the most obvious ones, right? And this isn't me saying, oh, Edward de Vere wrote this, because this one, like Othello, like All's Well That Ends Well, where you have an Oxford character, it's not a very flattering character. And I get that Oxford, if he is Shakespeare, he's supposed to be just one of the most honest people there is, artistically speaking. But Timon isn't exactly a hero by any means, right? Like, I enjoy watching Timon. I don't ever want to be Timon. I don't ever want to be called Timon, right? Like, how do you feel about that, Brady? Like, because at some point, the whole life narrative of Edward de Vere is that he was the prodigal earl. He was the rich earl that was fanning out his cash to all these artists, all these poets, all these, flatterers. And he did that throughout the 70s and 80s till he was broke in the 90s, and he lived sad, broke, destitute till he died. Like, he's the famous version of that from the era. Of course, that happened probably to more than one person, but he is the famous version, and he also did visit Athens too. And so, like, I think there's a lot of reason to see De Vere or Oxford in Timon, but if he is famously that, it does not mean that he has to be the one writing it. And my own personal take is that I'm more and more every day looking at Thomas Nash. Spoiler alert, folks out there that've been wondering where's Chance authorship head at. Nash is where I'm at. Not only Nash, but Nash. Look at Nash. Because at some point, the authorial character in this play is definitely Flavius, right? Like, maybe one could argue Apomantis, but I feel like Nash could be both those people. Nash did actually work for Oxford during this, and Flavius could very much be Lily, who's Nash's buddy. Um, and so, and at some point, if we're talking about responding to defensive poetry, and like, because I don't think that Philip Sidney is actually responding to this play. Like, maybe you can make that argument about the Tempest or Henry V, like Oxfordians tried to, and I don't think that you actually can, but it's easier to make that argument than here. I don't think Oxford can be writing Timon before defensive poetry because Oxford hasn't lived the life of Timon yet, right?
Say it again. What was the
Like,
last thing you just said?
so Oxford can't be writing Timon before defensive poetry
Oh, right.
because Oxford still has to live the life of Timon for him to write Timon, and
Right.
he hasn't fully Timoned out by 1581 yet. Um, and so, yeah, it's clearly that Timon of Athens is responding to defensive poetry, not the other way around in that sense. And so, I don't think Oxfordians want to admit that Oxford cares that much about what Sidney says and is trying to respond that much to Sidney. But it totally makes sense that Nash would. Nash dedicates his very first work to Philip Sidney. He's the one that gets Philip Sidney's works first printed, basically. Nash is kind of obsessed with Sidney and would also be the one to be into De Vere's stuff as well and have the knowledge of De Vere, be able to tell the story of De Vere. So, yeah, just I think Nash is the smart one. And as we saw in Engendering of Toads, who is it that we're matching it up with other than Webster?
Middleton?
No, it's Nash.
Oh. Oh, right. Oh, in that video. Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. But
So Nash.
also, yeah, he also Thomas Nash also dies off screen like Timon, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Like, where is Thomas Nash's body? Where's his grave? Just point to a city, even. Like, just what city should I start looking in? London, Yarmouth, somewhere between. I don't know, Malta. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. Um, like at least with Marlowe, I can go to that one place in Deptford, right? Like I can go to that inn. I can stand where the man supposed to have stood. Even Sydney, I can technically go try and triangulate where on the battlefield he would have been in Zutphen, right? Like maybe it's a parking lot now or something, but like Nash, it's like there's nobody. So I'm really glad you brought that up. Just that any Marlovian out there that's like, yes, Christopher Marlowe faked his death. Guys, like I'm not totally against it, but like I'm starting to get kind of frustrated with the whole Marlovian schema, the whole scene. It seems outdated. It seems debunked. It seems dead. And it seems to me that any of the energy that was there might actually just be Thomas Nash, who's supposed to probably be writing with Christopher Marlowe. Like Dido, we say for sure he's writing with him. And it seems like Faustus, there's clearly Nash scenes in there. Like, there's just, all of a sudden we're not in iambic pentameter. We got all this tavern rabble rouse stuff. Like, yeah, that's Nash. Like, who else? Jew of Malta definitely seems like Nash could be part of that too. Um, Edward II, like Nash could be part of every Marlowe play where nobody's noticed. So, yeah, and I don't know, Marlovian's been around 30, 40 odd years. Donna Murphy's the only one that's taken Nash seriously, and Donna Murphy's the only Marlovian that I take seriously. Sorry, Ross, you've had your time. Thanks for your blog. I'm gonna keep picking it apart, but no. Yeah, onwards and upwards with Simone, I think. Um,
And so I got the text pulled up here on the screen. I've got the Folgers here just to kind of go through some lines here for a minute. And yeah, just to kind of show once again also the conversation about value, because it's kind of like the opening thing that they're talking about here. And so, yeah, right off the bat, yeah, you just get introduced to the poet and the painter. They both kind of say hi to each other. And then this jeweler kind of walks on the scene, and they all kind of know that they're heading towards the same place, right? And yeah, the jeweler says, "I have a jewel here." Merchant says, "Oh, pray, let's see it. For Lord Timon, sir." Jeweler says, "If he will touch the estimate, but for that." And so, yeah, already this conversation about value is kind of happening right away. Like, yeah, I'll sell it to him, or I'll give it to him if, if I'm going to get what I think I deserve for it, right? Maybe that a little bit of that entitlement maybe popping back in again. And the poet says to the painter, "When we for recompense have praised the vile, it stains the glory in that happy verse which aptly sings the good." Merchant looking at the jewel, "'Tis a good form." "And rich, here's water, look ye." Yeah, the water is also going to be maybe a motif as well later on. Painter to poet, and I really like this poet line here because this is more Sydney-ish to me, but painter to the poet, "You are rapt, sir, in some work, some dedication to the great lord?" Poet, "A thing slipped idly from me. Our posy is as gum which oozes from which 'tis nourished. The fire in the flint shows not till it be struck. Our gentle flame provokes itself, and, like the current, flies earth each bound it chases." What have you there? But yeah, just that "a thing slipped idly from me," that kind of sprezzatura sort of bit, right? "Our posy is as gum which oozes from which 'tis nourished." Yeah, I don't know, whoever Shakespeare's is, yeah, I just like this poet character already. And yeah, maybe I'm missing some kind of like irony here or something like that. I could totally see that. But I just feel like the poet is smart because he's like the only one maybe who's also going to go up against Apomantus, the other sort of misanthropic cynic that we're going to kind of meet here in just a minute too, right? But here we go. We'll just continue a little more here. Painter, "A picture, sir. When comes your book forth?" Poet, "Upon the heels of my presentment, sir. Let's see your piece." So I guess he's just gonna like wing it maybe when he gets there, or just gonna finish it there. And so the poet's like, "Oh yeah, you got a pretty good piece there. 'Tis so. It comes off well and excellent." Painter, indifferent. Poet, "Admirable. How this grace speaks his own standing. What a mental power this eye shoots forth. How big imagination moves in this lip. To the dumbness of the gesture one might interpret." Painter, "It is a pretty mocking of the life. Here's a touch. Is it good?" Poet, "I will say of it, it tutors nature. Artificial strife lives in these touches livelier than life." So yeah, I don't know if he's kind of like, in this sense, yeah, I could also read that he's kind of like obviously been like kind of making fun of him, and he's still elevating poetry kind of above it, right? He's kind of, if anything, just by even, I don't know, just those words already leaping off the page in this sort of like ironic description of painting themselves or whatever, And yeah, just it tutors nature. Artificial strife lives in these touches livelier than life.
Yeah, so it's very noetic in the sense that, yeah, it can mean like it's so good it's better than nature, it surpasses nature. But yeah, it can also mean that like, oh, this is really bad, it's forced, it's totally fake, it's artificial, it's yeah. You're trying way too hard.
And then just to kind of, I'll shoot over here for a second to just to kind of defend to Posey. Let's just kind of read some of these things that he says in here, right? So here's Sidney now, Sir Philip Sidney in his defense of Posey. "But because this second sword is wrapped within the fold of the proposed subject, and takes not the free course of his own invention, whether they be properly poets or no, let grammarians dispute, and go to the third, indeed right poets, of whom chiefly this question arises. Betwixt whom and these second is such a kind of difference as betwixt the meaner sort of painters, whose counterfeit only such faces as are set before them, and the more excellent, having no law but wit, bestow that in colours upon which it is fittest for the eye to see, as the constant though lamenting look of Lucretia when she punished herself in another's fault, wherein he paints not Lucretia, whom he never saw, but paints the outward beauty of such a virtue." There's a little more down here. Let me see. Well, maybe I should just read this little line here. For these third be they which most properly do imitate to teach and delight, and to imitate borrow nothing of what is, has been, or shall be, but range only reined with learned discretion into the divine consideration of what may be and should be. These they be that, as the first and most noble sort may justly be termed vates, so they are weighted on in excellentest language and the best understandings with the fore-described name of poets. For these indeed do merely make to imitate, and imitate both to delight and teach, and to delight to move men to take the goodness in hand, which without delight they would fly away from a stranger. All right, maybe not as much of the painter as I needed. All right, here we go.
Hey, real quick, pull up a tab and search Lucretia Veronese, because this is the actual painting that he's talking about.
Lucretia Veronese.
Veronese.
One more time.
Veronese.
Okay, here it is.
Yeah, so there's several famous Lucretia paintings. Botticelli does maybe the first famous one. Botticelli's before Veronese, but it's assuredly going to be Veronese that Sydney's talking about, because this is the guy that did Sydney's portrait.
Oh.
The lost portrait. Because Sydney doesn't go every which where around Italy like Oxford does. Sydney pretty much confines it to Venice and the places around Venice. He's not interested in going to Florence or Rome as a Protestant. But when he goes to Venice, he could have visited Titian and Tintoretto, but we know he for sure visited Veronese. So yeah, this is. But yeah, Lucretia. That's Lucrece, right? From Shakespeare's Rape of Lucrece. So yeah, it's not just De Vere that may have seen Titian's Venus and Adonis painting with the bonnet cap. Like I've argued, it's maybe more likely that Sidney did, because De Vere was visiting Titian when Titian was really old. Sidney was there like a year earlier. Yeah, Sidney actually makes mention of wanting to visit the painters and actively talks about Titian, Tintoretto, and Veronese. So, yeah.
All right, let me read here a little bit and see if we can get just more of this conversation between painters themselves, right? Because that's just what's happening in the beginning of this Timon play. All right, last little quote here. For indeed, if the question were whether it would be better to have a particular act truly or falsely set down, there is no doubt which is to be chosen, no more than whether you would rather have Vespasian's picture right as he was, or, at the painter's pleasure, nothing resembling. But if the question be for your own use in learning whether it be to have it set down as it be or should as it was, then certainly it is more doctrinable that feigned Cyprus of Xenophon than in the true Cyrus and Justin, and the feigned Aeneas and Virgil than the right Aeneas and Darius Phrygius. As to a lady that desired to fashion her countenance to the best grace, a painter should more benefit to her portrait most sweet face, writing Canidia upon it, than to paint Canidia as she was, who, Horace swears, was foul and ill-favored. All right. I think there's one more. Oh, we even get an Alcibiades mention here, just right above that. One of the characters in the play, anyway. Of course, yeah. There's just gonna be tons of classical allusions up and down in this stuff. So not that it makes or breaks. Like, aha, I found it. They said the thing. Oh no, I should probably read this. Okay. Here's a little further on. For I will not deny, but that man's wit may make posy, which should be ekastike, which some learned have defined figuring forth good things. Kind of that, I don't know, oozing, figuring forth good things just kind of reminds me of that line, right? Just the oozing. Our posy is this gum which oozes from which 'tis nourished, right? To fantastike, which doth contrariwise infect the fancy with unworthy objects, as the painter that should give to the eye either some excellent perspective or some fine picture fit for building or fortification, or containing in it some notable example, as Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac, Judith killing Holofernes, David fighting Goliath,
Holofernes, as in the character in Love's Labor's Lost.
Yeah. David fighting with Goliath may leave those, and please an ill-pleased eye with wanton shows of better hidden matters. But what shall the abuse of a thing make the right odious? So yeah, just off the bat, like I said, just kind of immediately when I started reading this, you had this conversation between a poet and painter, which is not going to be any of the classical sources that we're going to talk about later for the Timon sourcing of this play, right? There is actually a Lucian satirist kind of, I don't know, what is it like a, I would kind of say it's an essay, but it's like an essay maybe in prose form or something like that. None of this stuff is in there. So this is, whoever Shakespeare is, take your pick. Whoever it is, like this is the author or our authors, inserting this particular scene into this discussion, right? There in the original stuff, it's not like when we're gonna look at the other later Timon text, the real classical one by Lucian. It just we're actually gonna open up when Timon is already poor, right? So you're not gonna get any of this stuff. You're not gonna have a poet and a painter and a jeweler come in and start having this stuff. So this is pure Elizabethan Renaissance stuff setting up this play, right? This is the opening scene that you're gonna get before we even get to Timon. Yeah, what mental power this eye shoots forth. Oh, I just love these lines. All right, I will say of it, it tutors nature, artificial strife, right? So that's exactly how he's talking about. Yeah, that the posy will be able to do better than the painter sometimes, right? Let me see. I wonder if there's any of these other ones I need to read here. I like it when when the poet starts talking to Apomantis there. I guess we'll read this a little bit more of this poet, and you butt in if you ever need to. All right, so the poet's gonna say some more stuff here. You see this confluence, this great flood of visitors, indicating his poem. I have in this rough work shaped out a man, whom this beneath world doth embrace and hug with amplest entertainment. My free drift halts not particularly, but moves itself into a wide sea of wax. No levelled malice infects one comma in the course I hold, but flies in eagle flight, bold and forth on, leaving no track behind. Painter. How shall I understand you? Poet. I will unbolt to you. You see how all conditions, how all minds, as well of glib and slippery creatures as of grave and austere quality, tender down their services to Lord Timon. His large fortune, upon his good and gracious nature hanging, subdues in properties to his love and tendance of all sorts of hearts. Yea, from the glass-faced flatterer to Apomantis, that few things loves better than to abhor himself. Even he drops down the knee before him and returns in peace most rich in Timon's nod. I saw them speak together. Poet. Sir, I have upon a high and pleasant hill feigned fortune to be thrown. The base of the mount is ranked with all deserts, of all kinds of natures that labor on the bosom of this sphere to propagate their states. Among them all, whose eyes are on this sovereign lady fixed, one do I personate of Lord Timon's frame, whom fortune with her ivory hand wafts to her, whose present grace to present slaves and servants translates his rivals. All right, painter. To conceive tis conceived to scope, this throne, this fortune, and this hill. Methinks with one man beckoned from the rest below, bowing his head against the steepy mount, to climb his happiness would be well expressed in our condition. Nay, sir, but hear me on. All those which were his fellows but of late, some better than his value, on the moment follows his strides, his lobbies filled with tendance, rain sacrificial whisperings in his ear, make sacred even in his stirrup, and through him drink the free air. Ay, Mary, what of these? When fortune in her shift and change of mood spurns down her late beloved, all his dependents, which labored after him to the mountain's top, even on their knees and hands let them slip down, not one accompanying his declining foot. Painter. 'Tis common. 1,000 moral paintings I can show that shall demonstrate these quick blows of fortunes more pregnantly than words. Yet you will do well to show Lord Timon that mean eyes have seen the foot above the head. Yeah, so it's like, the painter's being like, yeah, I can do that same thing too, but like already the poet here is already like doing this in the text already, right? He's already painting the mind's eye's image with these characters already. So once again, maybe my smooth braid is missing some irony that the poet is actually not as smart as he claims, or is kind of obviously, but no, he seems to be calling it out, like, he's reading the room, and he's like, yeah, like all these dudes and are harping on him, and they'll find ways of extracting value because they'll know that Timon's got the value essentially, or at least is letting himself rain off of it.
Yeah. And also the last line there, yet you do well to show Lord Timon that mean eyes have seen the foot above the head. Um, I I wonder if that's one of the inspirations for Edgar Allan Poe's Cask of Amontillado. He has that whole scene where he talks about his herald, his family herald is a golden foot stepping on a snake's head that's trying to bite the foot with its fangs.
Hmm.
But yeah, he uses that as a running motif of the noticing the trampling foot above.
Yeah, very interesting. All right. So yeah, they're just I don't know, just this setup I think is already, to quote Shakespeare here, what that he said earlier, is already oozing lots of great setup here about not just just the plot, that, oh, here's what's going on with Timon and blah 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 blah, right? No, but it's this conversation of value and not just like their merits and their trades, right? Like, the painter versus the poet, but just and how everyone values things differently. And yeah, I don't know, I think it's just it's really interesting. Um, Now, and also one of these, let me look at the line real quick. It's line 30 something. Oh no, too far along. It's gonna be line almost like 200 something. Uh, and you will definitely see that this is going to be a yeah, so we're gonna get, because Apomantis is a character who's pretty much just tells everybody off the whole time, right? And yeah, right over here, first thing, first bit in this first play, we're already gonna get someone calling each other dogs, right? When thou art Timon's dog, and these knaves honest, and someone says, "You're a dog," painter, "You're a dog," or technically in my copy it says "You're a dog," not "you are." Yeah, it's this Y apostrophe A R E. You're a dog. Thy mother's
Yeah.
of my generation. What's she if I be a dog? um, it's just so great. And but I looked it up earlier, right before, or not right before, earlier when I was doing a little more pre-research for this. So the word dog appears 15 times in the word play, and the word dogs with S appears 3 times. So you get a lot of mixtures of dogs and maybe hounds. I didn't even look up hounds. Maybe that's in here too, or mongrels. But yeah, a lot of people calling each other dogs. And that's like the famous mic drop scene that Timon's gonna do when he's invited all these flatterers back to his house, is that he says, "Lap up, ye dogs," and yeah, lifts up, and it's like dog bowls of water essentially, right? Um,
Right.
and Chance, you want to let them know why maybe the dogs is such a prevalent motif in here? Like, yeah, what is it? Just is it? Oh, Shakespeare's
Yeah.
just going
So,
crazy with the dog mentions in here.
okay. So, if you've ever heard the word cynical, we have our own sort of vulgar meaning of the word cynical now to mean, somebody who's just um, angry or sarcastic or something, which that is sort of within the meaning. But cynic was a school of philosophy in ancient Greece. Um, maybe not founded, but prominently popularized by Diogenes. There's like 10 Diogenes, so you have to call him Diogenes the Cynic. Um, and yeah, cynic literally is just the related to the Greek word for dog, like uh, as in kine, or related to our word canine, right? Um,
Kunikoi, apparently.
um, um, and so,
Kunikos, dog-like.
yeah, okay,
All right, and then I guess for dog singular would be kuon.
yeah. Um, and yeah, we do the soft C and we flip the U to the Y, but yeah, so it's it, it it's because Cynic philosophers sort of eschewed societal norms. They wouldn't bathe as often. They didn't care about fashion or nice clothes. A lot of them like just lived in the street.
Diogenes famously slept in a tub, like probably not exactly a bathtub, but more like just a really large vase. And yeah, that's where he lived. Um, and so the cynical philosophy is a way of like just it's you can think of modern day like libertarians, but like to an extreme degree, or modern day like art house bohemians to an extreme degree, to the point where they might reject some norms that libertarians or bohemians would still hold dear. They would just totally completely reject those norms and say they're arbitrary norms, they're stupid. It's some point it's like a moral skepticism. It's not just like an epistemological skepticism, but like an ethical or moral skepticism. And it's you know I think it's important for any of the countercultural sort of movements or anything like the underground to exist, for people to have cynical philosophy that's valuable. Otherwise, you just get kind of sucked up into the system. And at some point, I would argue that's what's sort of being portrayed here in Timon. That someone like Apomantis is completely prepared for anything because he is totally to the brim laced with cynical philosophy. And Timon is absolutely not at all. He's the opposite. He's somebody that like is cynical about cynical philosophy and therefore is totally sincere about the social norms, the expectations, the collectivist ideals, which is to say, basic capitalism, if we want to get Marxist about it. He totally buys into their social system, give money, be a patron. And a real cynic philosopher should just absolutely know better than to expect anything good like this system to, anything good to come out of the system. But yeah, continue.
Marty Drew was saying earlier, he was saying, I intuit a Gothic and or a classical ruin for the location of the Timon grave, or a kind of temple of prophecy for some reason. Oh, if you're there, he also said, Marty said, for the mean eyes quote, he said, mean eyes means the eye of the poor, or the vulgar, or the ignorant? Are they necessarily the same thing? Or the stupid?
Let me pull that quote so you don't have to scroll back through it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I already had it pulled up here. Yeah, just that one you were musing on. You do well to show Lord Timon that mean eyes have seen the foot above the head. Yeah, he talking about vulgar, ignorant, mean, poor, stupid. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility maybe in that.
Yeah, I would say something of the sense of like just average or even below average, like that anybody can see it. It does recall to mind Ben Jonson's Poet Ape. Even half eyes will know the fleece. Will know shreds from the whole fleece. But yeah, which is to say that like that like Lord Timon should be way above these mean eyes. And I don't think that there's actually quite a knowing sense from the painter and the poet here. Like, I don't think that they actually know that Timon's on his downfall, right? Like, or that's right around the corner. I think it's, almost a little bit of pregnant movie magic of, he just happens to have a poem that's, all the same kind of stuff that's going to happen to Timon. And there's an ironic thing here because it's like the painter's like, yeah, Timon will enjoy seeing a play or a poem about lesser people realizing what's above them. But the irony is that Timon himself is going to have that happen to him here, right? Um, and that also at some point, there's even within this little metaphor here, um, Timon's supposed to be the thing above them, giving down to them. So Timon having a foot over them, which isn't totally implied here, but it's associatively suggested that we can think of as Timon the foot above his patronees' heads, and so that there is a power dynamic, and that because there's a power dynamic, that's why it's never reciprocated. That it's not a true friendship, it's not a true reciprocity. It's just a power dynamic. And so as soon as Timon's foot is off their head, um, they're going to try and get into Timon's place, and they're not going to be like Timon and getting out, But yeah, my bad. Continue.
All right, good. Yeah, good addition. And yeah, so I just had the Cynic basic wiki pulled up here, and it just says derives from what you said earlier, dogs. But one explanation offered in ancient times for why the Cynics were called dogs is because the first Cynic, Antisthenes, taught in the Kenosarges gymnasium at Athens. The word Kenosarges means the place of the white dog. But yeah, often was thrown at the first Cynic as an insult for their shameless rejection of conventional manners and their decision to live on the streets. Diogenes in particular was referred to as the dog. What's up, dog?
Yeah, right.
Interesting there. Yeah, but it gets a little Epicurean maybe in a sense too, right? And maybe slightly Stoic, because apparently those two are also people that sort of shun wealth. The goal of life is eudaimonia, the mental clarity or lucidity, literally freedom from smoke, which signified false belief, mindlessness, folly, and conceit. I thought I had some other Greek words in here about.
And I like while you're looking up, just going to note that it seems like all Hellenistic philosophy to some degree. So like all post Plato, all post Aristotle. Like once we have Alexander go and just totally blow up the Mediterranean and Near East world, that's where all of a sudden almost all philosophies, which apparently they're all like violently competitive with each other, but like one thing that they all seem to point at is this demurring of worldly power, and that's exactly what plays into Christianity. Like Christianity is like super Hellenic in that sense. But yeah, whether it's Epicurus, whether it's any of the Stoics, or even Pyrrho, the skeptic, or Diogenes or later Cynics. And Diogenes is pre Alexander, to be fair, but I think like that cynical philosophy lasts into Alexander, and spreads post Alexander in a way that it was totally askewed, and it was the weird hipster philosophy back in Socrates' day. But by post Alexander, like everybody's a cynic more than they used to be. And like that's so relevant to now, right? Like we're in a neo-Hellenic age where, you can think of the early 20th century or even the 19th century as sort of our Socratic age, our golden age Athens, our Plato age Athens. You can go back before that to Shakespeare times or whatever. That's our tragic age, right? But we are totally in this neo-Hellenic age where everybody's a cynic now. Like no matter who you are cynical towards some ideal or other. And like people blame it on postmodernism or Marxism or post-colonialism or Nietzsche or whoever they want to blame it on from whichever political angle they're coming from. Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they're just reacting to, oh shit, we're in a Hellenic age, and we all kind of need to have a lot of cynical philosophy, and it's this natural thing that, like, I think the cynical philosophy blossoms and pops up because of a reaction to power.
Yeah.
Like, Alexander showed power on a level that had never been shown before, so there's this reaction. Now I think it's like more the internet than a person, but you could pick people. You know, Musk has a lot of money right now. Whatever. Um,
If I could also extend the cynic likening to a conspiracy theorist, right? Because I was at some thing, and I was kind of talking about something and some conspiracy stuff, and someone's like, "Oh, is it always conspiracies with you?" And but I know this person, and I was like, "Yes," but I know for certain people, it's just like you just need your certain conspiracy narrative for work for you, right? For that person, it's like it's the Democrats that are doing this kind of stuff, or for somebody else, it's like, oh no, it's the patriarchy that is doing this stuff, or for this person, it's the Chinese or whatever. Like everyone's got their cynic view about whatever's controlling it, right? And to bring it back to, because yeah, you brought up Diogenes, and so apparently there's this famous thing where Alexander is hearing all about Diogenes, so he goes and visits him because he's like, oh dude, I heard about this crazy philosopher. Yeah, let's go see him, right? And apparently Alexander, who's got all the power in the world, says like, can I grant you one wish just because like how influential you are? I just want to like kind of give back. And Diogenes just is like, hey man, can you like stand out of the way of the sun? Which is like, yeah, really really funny. Yeah, so I think yeah, that perfectly encapsulates this sort of cynic, and the way to maybe take the power back or something like that is maybe could be argued in that sense.
so I'll take one little other. Cam Pasby is John Lilly's first play, maybe his best play, and it's maybe his best play because this is also about, you know, the poet and the painter in a sense. Um, Cam Pasby is Alexander's girlfriend, and his his best buddy is this painter who's basically known as the best painter in history before the Renaissance painters, Apelles. So like up to Vinci, if you wanted to refer to, you know, the greatest of all time, you'd say Apelles. So yeah, we have the poet painter conversation kind of happening here as well. But the reason why this play is awesome is not because of Alexander, Campaspe, or Apelles. That stuff's right. Is because the side plot is all about Diogenes the Cynic, and so he's like one of the main characters in here. And yeah, it has the Alexander meeting Diogenes scene in here, but like the Diogenes side plot is that everybody keeps hearing that he's gonna fly, that like he has defied societal norms so much that he's like, yeah, dude, I can fly if I want. Like, you guys are walking because you want to walk, like, you know. Um, and so like he has these wings. He's like gonna jump off the roof and fly. And every day they keep coming back, like, dude, is he gonna fly again? And, not today. I'm in my tub or whatever. And then like one day he's up on the roof and oh god, he's gonna do it. And he's like ready to do it, and he's like, I'm not doing it. And then he just goes and sits in his tub again, and everybody's like, what the hell, Diogenes? And it's like, what did you think he was gonna do? Why would you think that he was ever gonna? He's not retarded. He's Diogenes. He would never jump off of a roof and try to fly. That's the dumbest thing ever. And
Marty said, is there a little swipe at Cecil in all this?
um, you know, it's it's possible that there are indirect swipes at Cecil if we're gonna say Timon is Oxford in some way. And so any of those friends that, you know, don't help Oxford out, that could be directed either at Cecil Jr. or Senior. Um, um, I don't see an exact character that's like, okay, that's the Cecil target, not, you know, not like Richard the Third or something. But that is totally possible. Um, it seems to me that that the there's a couple authorial stand-ins here. Like Apomantus definitely seems to have some awareness to an extent that other characters don't. The poet unwittingly seems to have an awareness. Like the poet seems to be, saying everything that's going to happen, and we are reading a play written by a poet, whoever Shakespeare is, or are. And then, you know, one could argue that there is elements of it in Timon. Like there are moments in the play where Timon seems to seriously, like, it's not just somebody, like there's some actual serious experience with what Timon's going through. But once again, I would like to maybe point to Nash, who was constantly hung out to dry because of lack of patronage, and went to jail for debts. Constantly complained of being left out to dry for lack of patronage in his texts. And then if we're going to go with Donna Murphy's idea that Nash becomes Decker, well, we also know Decker, he's almost a reverse of Timon, right? He just borrows from everybody and never gives back. But there's still an interesting thing there. Yeah, that is funny.
So I have another line pulled up that I like a lot, and I saw someone in Substack, and they had actually converted or translated a line from, what's that dark academia book? It's like the dark academia book, and it's about college students reenacting a Dionysus, the Bacchae myth or something. Oh, what is the name of this book?
Oh, the Donna Tartt shit.
Yes. Anyway, and not that I want to go into that, but someone had. Yeah. What was it? The Secret.
Secret Club or Breakfast Secrets or
The Chamber of Secrets.
Gen X Secret. Yeah. It was something like that. Like Yuppie Secrets. No, sorry, I'm taking way too many pot shots at Donna. But yes, continue.
Yeah, so I just saw someone with like a little. It was just like their little status, and they had translated it to Greek, and there was one word that I just didn't understand what it was. And this is when I first read this text, and the word was hupurafania, and this person, because I asked, they're like, yeah, it's not like a really one-for-one translation, but in the Bible, hupurafania means to mean pride or arrogance or haughtiness. So huper or hyper, meaning above or beyond, and then phano, right, meaning literally to shine or to appear. But I just happened to find this word, and I just encapsulated this line in Timon of Athens so well. And so this is still in the beginning part of the play, and so Timon's still just out Oprah Winfreying everyone, right? And even when people are trying to say thank you, he's like outdoing their thank you, right? And so cut them off, right? So First Lord, we are so virtuously bound. He's already given all these guys a bunch of stuff. We are so virtuously bound to, and so am I to you. Timon interrupts him. Second Lord, so infinitely endeared. He's like, he's using the biggest possible, thing. Like I am forever. Me to you too, bro. I am indescribably bound to you. All to you too, bro. Like, yeah, he cuts him off, right? It's a little thing here where he's actually cutting him off. And then he says, lights, more lights. And so it's literally outshining someone. Hupurafania, right? It's like, there's a pride or an arrogance maybe in this. And so I just happen to find this like perfect Greek word for this little
I like that.
Timon thing here, right? But maybe that's kind of what Timon's doing. That's where we kind of get into Timon's psychology, right? Does he just want to feel like he's the best, and is that why he's dispensing all of his money? He just loves this admiration and this accolade, but that he can't even accept like thank yous. Like he's even I have to like thank you, sir. 10 thank yous to you. Well, 1,000,000 thank yous to you. 10 billion thank yous to you, sir. Like, he can never, find his sort of placement. He's always just having to like one up someone or outshine something else or at all times,
Right.
And so, yeah, just kind of going into,
right.
Is Timon tragic? Is he this or that? Does he deserve sympathy or not? And, maybe that's where, he's kind of a spoiled kid, maybe in the sense, this entitlement kid, like we kind of talked about earlier, where, he just is going to throw a fit when things don't go his way, in a sense, and things kind of come crumbling down. And so, it makes him more of a pathetic person, maybe in that sort of reading too, right? Not that people didn't try to bail him out, and that, he did kind of dig his own situation. I don't want to say grave per se, but I guess grave in a sense.
Right. Well, it, I like that you're bringing this up here because um, we can go in a totally psychological thing where we're just looking at Timon's psyche himself, making Freudian, Jungian, Lacanian, whatever hotshot psychological hermeneutic you want to use to make a reading into what is making Timon go through this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how is he so much this Greek tragic character? Because Greek tragic characters in a lot of ways we're just supposed to take as these like metaphorical archetypes, which you can use Jung for sure to do, but like it's not as this particular psychological study like in a Freudian sense of just watching the same person, looking at the same person for months on end, like um but you can totally do that with Timon. But we could also like talk totally, in economic terms. Because like at some point, it, this is a system of valuing, right? And economics is just how that system of valuing works and interacts, right? And so like at some point, we could make an anti-capitalist reading into this play, right? That Timon is doing this because of basically Hegelian master slave issues of the capitalist system. Like, what makes you good at being a capitalist is competing, right? And outcompeting the other people. But, like, what use is it to outcompete people when you are so far at the top that you can't compete, right? And so he has to, like, find this secondary means of competing. And it
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of like the Vanderbilt mansion stuff, or
Mm-hmm.
all these people going broke trying to start these like nonprofit charity funds and stuff. Um, like that is a total that's a phenomenon that happens to rich people, like uber rich people, right? And that they go broke trying to do these little side projects to so they can keep competing, keep being capitalists. And so at some point, yeah, like Timon's already at the top. There's nothing else to gain. What else can he do to fuel this energy? Be a patron, right? Um,
Mm.
and so like that's how he can be of value, right? It's how can I keep being, giving more surplus value to the world? That's wonderful. Except like in this system, that it's no good. Because it ends up devaluing everything else. Um, but like at some point, this may lead into a discussion about how capitalism almost necessarily becomes socialism, and that at some point this is a maybe instead an attack on socialism, right?
Mm.
That
Yeah.
Timon is the socialist state, um, and like the socialist state is supposed to value the person above the state, right? That's the whole premise. There's no child left behind, right? Um, and so Timon, in a sense, is trying not to leave anyone behind. Timon is trying to be this perfectly socialist state, um, but it's unwieldy. It's a project that can't be done, and so like in one sense, we could say, "Nah, dude, this is totally a pro-Marxist, anti-capitalist reading," or we can, you know, say in some neo-reactionary sense, like, "No, this is totally anti-Marxist. This is showing you the failure of Marxism." But at some point, they're both having the same discussion because it's about systems of value. And what you were pointing out earlier, and what we've talked about in book club, is that like this is a play about just regardless of how the system works, if on the individual level value can't be ascertained correctly, the system, no matter what the structure is not going to work. And that's what Apomantis is saying the whole time. That's what the cynics say. That is a basic definition of cynic philosophy.
that at some point, no matter how good your ad hoc dialectical setup is, if one person can't make the correct valuation in that system, the whole thing's going to come tumbling down like a house of cards. And at some point, Timon is egregiously unable to value things correctly. And he's unable to value things correctly because, like, he has such this immense power status in his head that, like,
Everything's flattened, right? Like everything's just another little commodity to him, right? Everything's a commodity to him. Literally, he's paying money for everything. A poem, a painting, a piece of advice, new clothes, a jewel, you know, funding some school or something, which I don't think he does in this, but some rich person. Everything becomes a commodity when you're this rich.
In the beginning of the play, you have this jeweler who says, he's talking about the jewel that he brought, right? My lord, 'tis rated as those which sell would give, but you well know things of like value, differing in their owners, are prized by their masters. See? Believe it, dear lord, you mend the jewel by the wearing it. Yep.
Yep. And yeah, so like a giant condemnation of our collector's culture in today's day and age.
Dude, yeah, I want to punch people that collect Funko Pops. Like, you know how much plastic you're like pushing into the world by like buying this stuff, and yeah, just oh my god, just all that
like
sort of stuff.
I would burn down those stores, but yeah, that would be worse for the environment.
Yeah, I was gonna say the carbon dioxide release or something.
Yeah, so they got us by the balls, but no, seriously, at some points Shakespeare is very critical, not just in this play, but in several plays, of the way that our sort of value systems work. Like Shakespeare's hugely not a fan of usury, borrowing money, which our whole world works on now, the whole credit system. I don't know how many credit card ads I saw during the damn World Cup. Actually, I can't count how many, but it was enough to make me stop watching the World Cup. I'm not joking. I was like, dude, if I see another credit card ad, I'm not watching any more of these games. I'm a soccer guy. I grew up playing soccer. I was good at soccer. But yeah, like they had one, and it had the David Beckham doing something, and I was like, dude, I don't know. Fuck you. I'm done. So yeah. But okay, back to Timon. The whole thing about commodity, like one thing that Brady and I have pointed out that, and this goes back to the whole demographic thing. It's not just us being white and millennial, but it's us being males. This is a dude play. Like we named Dickens, we named Nabokov, we named Melville, Hawthorne, Poe. Those are all very like dicklit kind of dudes, like Moby Dicklit, like really big. And why is that? Well, how many women are in this play, Brady?
There's 3. I think it specifically says there's 3 that come in later.
Yeah,
but yeah, they come in one scene basically. It's not like 3 unique female characters. Like no, you just get a troupe of prostitutes.
Prostitutes, not just any women, but prostitutes. They're commodities, right? And so like the only female women that we see in this play are female women. The only females / women that we see in this play, yeah, that was not a don't take that any reading which way, but that was like they don't have names. It's like they're not literally called whore number 1, but it's like yes, and whore number 1 enters the scene. Like it might as well be, and Timon basically calls them dirty whores and treats them like absolute dog shit. And at some point, I don't think that's a statement on gender as much as it's a statement on the commodification of society.
They might have names.
And so,
Then at least in this basic wiki, we get Phrynia and Timandra.
okay,
I
yeah,
don't remember
yeah.
any of their names either, but there's a ladies at the mask. I don't quite remember that either. And it's not till way, way, way later. And yeah, I do not remember any of their names either. But obviously, yeah, they're not really there for very long. And yeah, as Chance is saying, that seems to be more of a device rather than, and yeah, commentary. Yeah, obviously not on females, but yeah, this value system that we keep talking about.
And so like I think Timon is probably, well, it's arguable between Timon, Coriolanus, and Macbeth, but like Shakespeare's really good at writing edgelords. These kinds of male characters that exist in the margins at some point in the story, and when they're in the margins, they're just like wholly not just cynical towards society, but hateful. Like terroristic. And so like I don't know, think of like Taxi Driver is the super most famous, but like the Joker is the maybe modern recent one, right? And like literally either Heath Ledger or Joaquin Phoenix is just pure edge lord guy angry with society and becoming terroristic. And so like we have Alcibiades who's like Brady said doing the Coriolanus thing, being full on like reactionary terroristic edge lord, right? And then we got Apomantus, who is just complete cynic, right? And then we got someone like Timon, who is absolutely a champion of the system. He's not a cynic or an edge lord, like either of the other two, but because of his downfall, he gets to a space where he has to kind of decide between those two options. Like those are his two options. And it almost gets to a point where his angst isn't about his state of where he's at in the sense of, oh, I lost everything. At some point I think he accepts that. I think his angst is about which of those two tracks to go to. And like at some point in that sense it's a little more Hamlety, where it's not just about inaction, the inaction is because of this indecision about action, right? And so like I think Timon like is so those two prostitutes, those are Alcibiades' mistresses, right?
Yes.
And so like I think Timon in spurning them, and he also spurns Alcibiades straight up, but I think in spurning both the prostitutes and Alcibiades, that's Timon spurning the edgelord, right? But like there's something about Timon that's like, okay, if he spurned that, then that means he is siding with Apomantus. He's just going to live life cynically, right? But there's something about Timon that is like, I can't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's too far gone. He doesn't. His value system has completely collapsed. Where Apomantus is like, dude, you're just a Johnny Come Lately, misanthrope, right? I've been doing here, I've already got this, I've already been telling you this whole time, like this is how you should be doing it. And now you're just too far gone. Although I do like this, I do like, I do like your portrayal of Timon telling off that Alcibiades being like an Andrew Tate type fellow, right? Just and yeah, he's telling him off, and that's I don't know, I find that really funny. But yeah, so to bring that back, because here I've got the line from Apomantus that I really like a lot. So Timon is in the wilderness. He's like, denouncing everybody. He's, out there. People keep coming on the scene. He's like, go to hell. Get away from me. Blah 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 blah. I would love thee if you were a dog, right? Oh, I wanted to say Blair's line because I didn't want to miss it earlier. What's up, Blair? Good to see you, man. He says, I think he's quoting here. He says, "For there is none of you us so mean and base that has not noble luster in your eyes." Yeah, so back to the eyes and mean is something too. So yeah, really, really good.
And the light and the shining. Yeah.
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 So
Totally
I
right.
think this is the author of Shakespeare here or not. This is what I was kind of wondering too. So yeah, this is kind of like Appomattus' sort of last lines in the play when Appomattus is like I said, all right, Timon, you're just a poser misanthrope, right? You're just a poser cynic, right? You only became a cynic once your little value system collapsed, and I'm telling you here, like I already predicted it. This is already gonna happen. I told you about, you were kind of just being a little floozy with your money here, right? But I love this line from Appomattus, right, where they're both because there's an epic battle of words between Appomattus, and Timon. I think it's one of the great Shakespeare moments, right? These two guys just spitting fire at each other. Um, yeah. Throng to, Amantis, I, Timon, thy back, I prithee, and then Appomattus. This. I think this is the culmination here, right? Telling what Timon to do. Live and love thy misery. Yeah, don't just like totally renounce the world because you're still part of the world, and yeah, you're. It's not really gonna work. You're not gonna get anything across that way either, right? And so, yeah, Timon, live long so and so die. I am quit. Appomattus, more things like men, eat Timon and abhor them, and then he leaves. So that's the last I think we see of Appomattus. I think the rest of this play, but I could be wrong. But yeah, I think that's just like the mic drop moment, like, yeah, deal with your shit and keep going. Yeah, it's like you
Yeah.
learn hard lessons, pathe mathos, wisdom through suffering or something.
Right. And at some point, Appomattus could be characterized as like existentialist or absurdist, and like the Sartesian or Camus fashion. That he's accepting the nihilism about the metaphysical nihilism of existence, but like is trying to actively do something with it. Whereas, yeah, Timon like just can't get there. Timon's like at this totally fatalistic form of nihilism.
Yeah, crashing out.
Which I do want to link this to our Faustus video recently, because I brought up Nick Land and I totally fucked up and didn't even say why I brought up Nick Land correctly. Like I talked
Oh
about
my
other
bad.
things that I wanted to bring up. Like of course Nick Land saying that zero entering into the Western tradition is what spurns on the Renaissance and modernity. And my take is that nihilism is the literary or philosophical form of zero. And so this is another play about nihilism in that sense. And Nick Land thinks that that's the problem with a lot of leftist politics, is that they haven't figured out how to deal with nihilism correctly. And these are more my words than his, but like he says that anybody that's of a leftist political outlook, and I myself sort of am, I haven't voted in like a decade or whatever, but point is, like, yeah, I like Marx, I like Nietzsche, I like a lot of um, leftist thought, and um, Nick Land says that all of us in today's day and age, in 2026 or 2025 or 2030, whenever it's going to be, we've become transcendental miserabilists. Transcendental in the sense of Kant's transcendental, like that's those are the structures that we can't get around. Like that's the base structure of how things work. So like, space, time, color, those are things that all of us are working on. You can't really intuit your way around them. Um, and that at some point, a state of misery has become our it's become another transcendental fact that, oh, everything on TV sucks, everything at the grocery store sucks, it's all capitalist commercial bullshit. Somebody's just screwing over somebody else. Today's going to be another shitty day at work. I got nothing to look forward to. We're all depressed, right? We're all these super functional depressivists. And so, like, I don't know, Nick Land saying that was the hardest kick I've had in the balls in a long, long time, and it's made me since then just almost totally rethink my life and what I'm doing and how I'm going about things. But like in the same sort of sense, that's what Appomantus is trying to do to Timon here. It's like, you know, we could take this one of two ways. We could either say Appomantus is totally just, you know, doing that existentialist thing, like, you know, yeah, Pate Mathos, accept it. That's part of it. Or we could say that Appomantus is like, you know, being stoic about it. That like, if you want to live in misery, go live in misery. It's up to you, kind of thing, right? Um, but either way, Appomantus is basically saying to Timon, like, you were being a transcendental miserablest. You were going to live like this forever with this outlook.
Hmm.
And Timon basically confirms it. And he says, yeah, long live so. And then, you know, die, and then I'm done. That's what life is. So what difference? Um, and yeah, so going back to land, going back to nihilism, um, going back to Faustus. Where was I going with this?
The
Okay,
transcendental
so
miserableness.
the whole pitch of the Faustus video was that we need to get to postmodernism. Like, people need to just sort of get over that hump. That, you know, all this championing of Goethe and ignoring of Marlowe. Um, it's all still that people are still stuck on modernism, right? That we need this God paradigm. That we need this single monolithic thing that all other value is consistent upon, right?
Dude, that's
And so in that sense, this is the most postmodern play that ever existed, right? And this is why Poe and Melville and all those romanticists are all on top of it, because they're a bunch of proto postmodernists, right? Like, Melville is one of the ones that breaks open the modernist paradigm in literature, which the modernist paradigm in literature is almost totally prefiguring the philosophical postmodern paradigm. Like, think Joyce, right? Just anything Joyce writes, it's all, or Faulkner, it's all disjointed and garbled, and you know, that's Melville. Melville's already working with postmodern techniques, and this is Melville's favorite play. So this is a play about postmodernism in the sense that Appomantus does not have anything to base value on. Appomantus is the only one in this play that's content with saying, I have nothing to base anything in my value on. Value is completely functionally relative. So he's completely a postmodernist, right? Timon is like, no, I'm a modernist. It's all based on money, right? The coins. That's why, not on this play cover, but on your play cover that you put on the thumbnail, it's coins, right? It's what he finds in the ground. He finds the money. It's what he's given to everybody. The coins are supposed to be the, you know, perfect totem symbol of that power structure. It's the thing that legitimizes all other value. It is the god, right? Um, and so Alcibiades, his, you know, is also a spurned modernist. Alcibiades is somebody that cannot deal with things in a postmodern sense, and for Alcibiades, it's not necessarily money; it's military power, right? Like, physical strength is the pure set of value. It's not about moral rightness or this or that. It's this. This is how we define value, through military might. Um, and so, like, in that sense, Appomantus is the only one that's at all prepared to deal with changing values, because for him values are relative. Um, Everybody else in this entire play has some sort of thing that they use as their value system. Like, for the poet and the painter, it's not even money; it's Timon himself, right?
Yeah.
Um, um, but yeah, that's how you. In like, we do that in today's society. Really rich people, like, for them it's the money itself. But then, like, I'm not gonna say any names, but I have plenty of my students that, like, capitalism is legitimized because of Elon Musk or young boy NBA or Kanye West or something, right? Like to them, that is a perfect example of how and why it works, and like not just how and why it works, but like yeah, that like other things that are unrelated work because they are distantly, indirectly sort of related back. I said unrelated, but seemingly unrelated. Um, and like there's an actual belief in that. Um, and yeah, like we're seeing that with Trump right now, right? Like demagoguery is its own, you know, way of basing value on something, right? Like, let me just put this person above everything. What they do is ultimately always right. It becomes this God value thing. Um,
Check this out too. Blake, or I'm sorry, Blair pointed this out in the chat. Let me flash these real quick. Not to not to also be on the nose with what I'm about to show you, but the Phrynia and Timandra, they are Greek characters. I don't know if you've seen this. I did not look these up before, and I totally should have because it would obviously be a revelation. So Timandra was a Spartan princess and later queen of Arcadia. And then the other one, oh yeah, this is just gonna be so on the nose. And then after I say this, I need to run to the bathroom for like 20 seconds here, and I'll let Chance muse on this while I do that. Let me share the screen real quick. Yeah, so we got Timandra, yeah, Spartan queen, later queen of Arcadia, right? So we were already talking about Sydney at the top, right? So now we're already back in Sydney land, one way or the other. The Sydneyan land, not just also include Mary and Roger in there because they seem to also be roped up in a lot of this either way. So we got Timandra here, and then the other one, right? Phrynia. Phrynia, here's the famous painting. You've probably seen this one before. She was a courtesan who was charged with impiety, and she's standing, although it's on the classical sources, I guess they don't mention, but all of them, these paintings always show that she's before the Areopagus. Shout out to the Areopagus Book Club. Links down below. $9 a month if you want to come join the deepest Shakespeare reading book club around. So give me 5 seconds as I run over here, and Chance, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to these two things. But yeah, obviously these female characters do actually have some proper classical allusions in this sense too. So that it's not just all a bunch of nothing there. If someone corrected you, NBA young boy. What is and Marty says the line, the deed of saying is quite out of use. I had to read it many times before I heard the accent on the word deed, before I understood each saying might have its own perfect deed. This makes me think of the freedom of the servant from loving he whom he serves. If he does what he says, he will never owe his master anything. This is the plainness and simpleness of the other kind. All right, give me 5 seconds. I'll be right back.
Okay. No, thanks for the young boy correction. As my students say, like they don't even say his full name anymore. It's just YB. YB is what everybody says now. Um, let me see. So I did not realize that this connected back to Sydney, but if I had a nickel every time Brady or somebody else connected Sydney through Greek, Brady wouldn't need to ask for Patreon members. We'd have buckets, pools full of nickels. Because at some point, like this goes into just the whole question about Shakespeare and his little Greek, or little Latin and less Greek, or small Latin and less Greek. Because how in the world can they Shakespeare didn't just randomly come up with a name and was like, maybe what if I call her like Samantha? And somebody's like, nah, that sounds too much like Samantha. How about Tamandra? I'm like, oh, that's good. That's good. Like I'm doing it like he's typing. No, it would be, dip it in the ink, quill in the ink pot and writing it. But no, like these aren't just made up names. These are legitimately classical names. They're legitimately Greek names. Even if it's not something totally in classics, it's still Greek oriented, Greek derived. And so like and it's not just this play. There's several Greek plays in Shakespeare, and maybe they have varying
claims of Greekness or outward Greekness. But it's not just the Greek plays of Shakespeare. Sometimes it's the non-Greek plays that have as much or more Greek influence in them as anything.
Like Hamlet.
And like Hamlet. And what I think ends up happening is that I think a lot of researchers have been cool with saying that Shakespeare didn't know Greek because hitherto Shakespeare, a lot of people would just sort of clunkily name drop as this sort of like badge of like, look at what I know. And so like Marlowe's like maybe the most egregious about it. And sorry, give me 1 second. My dog's being a whiny baby. Go, Chloe. So Marlowe's probably the most egregious about it. Like, go read the opening of Jew of Malta, or just any page in Tamburlaine, or even honestly a bunch of Henry VI plays by Shakespeare, which are supposed to be partly Marlowe in some regard or fashion. And yeah, just classical name drops, line after line. And Shakespeare, like, not totally, because obviously it's in Henry VI, it's in other plays that Brady and I have noticed, but like it's not done nearly as much as Marlowe would do it. And it's like, usually with Marlowe, you have to go look it up to see what's being meant. When Shakespeare does it, it's like, even if you don't know what the classical allusion is, you still kind of get the meaning of what's being said within the drama. And so, like, because of that, I think people have like overstepped and said, well, maybe Shakespeare just doesn't know Greek or Latin like Marlowe or some of these others that just whip it out like that. But no, what it is it's been subsumed structurally into the plays. It's character names, it's plot devices, it's motifs, it's metaphors, it's symbols, and paraphrase lines, if not exact quotes. But yeah, the name drops have been eschewed. It's almost like Shakespeare showing us like, no, this is actually how you refer to classics. This is actually how you do it. You got to go one deeper. It can't just be some off the cuff little, oh, look at this thing, look at this thing, look at this thing. It can't just be this, this bragging about your encyclopedic knowledge. You actually have to do something with it. And so, like someone like Thomas Pynchon, I think it's uproariously close, and is like hovers right on the line. Like, if Pynchon wasn't doing all the structural stuff, it would just be totally Marlowe name droppy bullshit. But like Pynchon's actually like doing a bunch of really, structural stuff on top of all the name drops. But I think there's a lot of like Pynchon wannabes where it ends up just being name drop shit. It's like, okay, this is stupid. My bad. Forgot where we're at, but we can continue.
I think this will be probably the last little segment because it'll bring us to both of the things you just said about questioning the illusions and questioning the structure, and then also bring it back to this authorship question once again. Maybe at least it'll tease it out because it's kind of part of like what the heck is going on. So, first of all, this play definitely has some classical sources in a sense, right? So we've got, first of all, I think in Plutarch is what it says that the actual person Timon is actually mentioned in Plutarch, along with I think it's actually in the Alcibiades section, right? But the most famous part of all this that we actually get a lot of the some of the setup or the plot is going to be by this classical author named Lucian of Samosata. And what is it, like in the 1st century BC? I'm totally blanking on when it's actually from. When's Lucian around? Pull it up here real quick. First, second century. And he is a satirist, and he wrote. This is in one of his. So he wrote this thing called Timon the Misanthrope, and like I said earlier, I kind of alluded to it. And so you're not going to get the first part of this Timon story like you do in Shakespeare, right, where he's pre being poor or whatever, right? And this story just kind of opens up. He's already poor. Timon's already poor, and he's just kind of like hanging around. He's been reduced to basically being a laborer. So he's actually working, and he's just like digging dirt with a spade. And let me just read this opening part, because I think it's just so funny. So yeah, here we go. We start with Timon here, right? And he goes, "O Zeus, thou arbiter of friendship, protector of the guest, preserver of fellowship, lord of the hearth, launcher of the lightning, avenger of oaths, compeller of clouds, utterer of thunder, and pray add any other epithets. Those cracked poets have plenty read, especially when they are in difficulties with their scansion. Then it is that a string of your name saves the situation and fills up the metrical gaps. O Zeus, where is now your resplendent lightning? Where are your deep-toned thunder? Where the glowing white-hot direful bolt? We know this is all fudge and poetic moonshine, bearing what value may attach to the rattle of the names. That renowned projectile of yours, which ranged so far and was so ready to your hand, has gone dead and cold, it seems, never a spark left in it to scorch iniquity." So yeah, he's kind of like, dude, this is not fair. Like, yeah, like, is there no justice anymore? Like, all these dudes, like, just, screwed me over and blah, 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 blah. And I was doing all this stuff. And then actually this text is actually, so he's kind of bemoaning here. And it's actually going to jump, and not, there's a lot of this misanthropos sort of type stuff. And he's just still talking to, denouncing Zeus here. But then we're actually going to get Zeus and Hermes and Plutos as characters. Plutos being the god of wealth, essentially, right? So, we zoom up here to Olympia, and like Zeus is like, "Yo, Hermes, like, who's this dude down here, like, spitting fire? Like, dude, what's going on with this guy?" And Hermes is like, "Yeah, that's Timon. Yeah, he's been down on his luck, and he's kind of mad that there hasn't been enough justice to him." It's pretty funny here with some of the things that we say, right? So he's like, yeah, this is basically what happened. It was kindness and generosity and universal compassion that ruined him, says Hermes. But it would be near the truth to call him a fool and a simpleton and a blunderer. He did not realize that his proteges were carrion crows and wolves. Vultures were feeding on his unfortunate liver, and he took them for friends and good comrades, showing a fine appetite just to please him. So they gnawed his bones perfectly clean and sucked out with great precision any marrow that might be in them, and went off, leaving him as dry as a tree whose roots had been severed. I gotta get to this super funny part where Zeus says, this part right here. And an earlier part, also Timon says, "Zeus, you couldn't even stop like a bunch of grave robbers like robbing your temples and stuff like that, right?" So, okay, now just to catch you up. So here's Zeus here. "This is a case we must take up and see. No wonder he is down on his luck. We should be putting ourselves on the level of his despicable sycophants if we forget all the fat ox and goat thighs he had burnt on our altars. The savor of them is yet in my nostrils. But I have been busy. There is such a din of perjury, assault, and burglary. I am so frightened of the temple robbers. They swarm now. You cannot keep them out, nor take a nap with any safety. And, with one thing or another, it is an age since I had a look at Attica. I had hardly been there since philosophy and argument came into fashion. Indeed, with their shouting matches going on, prayers are quite inaudible. One must sit with one's ears plugged if one does not want the drums of them cracked. Such long vociferous rigmaroles about incorporeal things or something they call virtue. That is how we came to neglect this man, who really deserved better." And here's like the really funny line I love. "However, go to him now." This is Zeus still talking. "However, go to him now without wasting any more time, Hermes, and take Plutos with you. Thesaurus is to accompany Plutos, as they are to both stay with Timon, and not leave him so lightly this time, even though the generous fellow does his best to find other hosts for them. As to those parasites, and the ingratitude they showed him, I will attend to them before long. They shall have their deserts as soon as I have got the thunderbolt in order again. Its two best spikes are broken and blunted. My zeal outran my discretion the other day when I took that shot in Anaxagoras, the sophist. The gods non-existent indeed. That was all what he was telling his disciples. However, I missed him. Pericles had held up his hand to shield him, and the bolt glanced off to hit the Asinium, set it on fire, and was totally nearly pulverized on the rock. But meanwhile, it would be quite sufficient punishment for them to see Timon rolling in money." I just love this text. That was hilarious. Anyone could read this in like a sitting. It's not very long at all, relatively. Yeah, I just love that. Oh man, I was gonna shoot my thunderbolt at those freaking sophists or whatever until some dude actually deflected with his hand and I pulverized my own some of our own crap. It's so funny. So remember, he mentions these temple robbers, right? So when Timon's like spading for the gold later on, he finds the gold, and I think it's actually supposed to be the temple robbers' gold that Timon finds, right? Because they stole a bunch of stuff out of the temple and then like kind of hid it, and that's what Timon's essentially finding. But not unlike what happens in the Shakespeare play, a bunch of dudes will come up upon Timon, and after he kind of has his money, and they'll ask for more stuff or pretend not to ask for stuff, and Timon every single time just goes and hits him with a shovel, and they're like, "Oh, dude, you don't hit me," and he's just like, "Get out of here!" It's great. I love this stuff. We gotta get the gods in here. Yeah, it's just very tongue in cheek, and now the problem with this thing is just like, well, this text is definitely not available in English, or definitely, I don't think it's available in English during Shakespeare's time, but it's obviously gonna be here. So maybe he got some Italian version, maybe he was able to read some Latin translation. I think those might actually be available, but the Greek is not. It's not going to be in here. I wonder if the word Hyperphania might be in here in the original text. That'd be really, really fascinating. I don't know, but and so it just kind of begs the question, like, how much Greek does Shakespeare really know? Did he have his hands on it? I won't go into how much some other candidates might know their Greek, but it's just one of those other things, like how much was Shakespeare, quote unquote, able to actually read Greek or not? And there's maybe this one just has some good dates in here. I forget this site's a Baconian or something like that. I totally forget.
It's Oxfordian.
Oh, is it Oxfordian? But
it's Kirk Kryler's site.
Okay.
It's using Robert Dedabell stuff.
Now there is, and they actually have this in the other basic wiki, I think too, but that there is a play that is put on, and it's just called Timon, or sometimes called the Comedy of Timon, and it was maybe put on by the Inner City Temple or something. I've got a bunch of like other essays. No, not that one. I got a bunch of other essays about this other performance that we don't have any. All we have is like a bare record of it. Comedy of Timon, a reveling play of the Inner Temple, right? We don't really have a lot of details on it. I didn't even finish reading this whole essay actually, but the only copy we have of our Timon, the Shakespeare's Timon, is only going to be in the Shakespeare Folio, right? So which text is influencing which one? Does there actually any possible relation between the two? Obviously, you'd think that they must have been reading this Lucian stuff, right? But it's just kind of like up in the air again. We don't really. It's kind of hard to tell. We just have to. Orthodox just has to cross their fingers and hopefully they don't break, as they hope that Shakespeare's Greek pulls through somehow. But it's just interesting, that there is a performance of some version of this, which I. Just going back into our authorship sort of scene again. I totally missed one of Blair's other comments, by the way, and he said Timon from the Greek word timao, to honor, highly valued, and then timandra from a combo of timao and andros, meaning honoring man or man's honor. Different words, but related, obviously. Double Sydney context, and tying back to the system of Valium theme as suggested. So definitely see that interesting. But just the
fantastic etymologies here. Thanks, Blair.
So that is what I didn't, like I said, I wish I had finished reading all this, and we could probably come back and do a whole Shakespeare authorship question just on this thing alone. We've already done that actually, with the engendering of toads and wondering about this stuff. But there was actually a comedy that was put on by the Inner Temple. We don't have a lot of details on it, and just once again, it's this which one is influencing which one. There was some other play I'm forgetting off the top of my head that kind of does something similar, like besides Troilus and Cressida, right? Oh, we got a Troilus and Cressida in the Henzo Diary, right? Oh, can we read that one? Is it like Shakespeare's? Like, nah, that's a silly question. Don't ask that. Like, well, can I read it? Can I see it for myself? Well, we don't have it. It's like, oh, of course, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
What does they say here? Among the dice manuscripts at the Victoria and Albert Museum is the untitled anonymous play. Oh, do we have the play? Which Dice edited for the Shakespeare Society in 1842. Any attention that work has received has been due to its relation with Shakespeare's Timon of Athens. It has been debated whether Shakespeare copied Anonymous or Anonymous copied Shakespeare, or both indebted to a common source. No one dissents from the verdict of Stevens, which has been copied into the manuscript. Quote, "This piece itself, though it appears to be work of an academic, is a wretched one." Okay. Oops, my computer's lagging. Even though even it's a wretched one, like Timon of Athens is still considered a problem play. So like, like, oh, what is this? We got a Decker. I've already put forward the view that, on the contrary, it represents a novel experiment, a spectacular pageant or show evoking old forms for new setting, beginning with a group of characters who are treated sometimes morally and sometimes satirically. Developing through a series of tableaux, it finally is dominated by the figure of the hero who reaches cosmic and symbolic dimensions, such as the Child of the Sun and Decker and Ford's mask, the Sun's Darling. The turning point of the mock banquet shows Timon in judgment playing in the part of the angry Jupiter, hurling stones of vengeance upon his false friends. Hurling stones is also mentioned in here too, and it kind of gave me a weird vibe where it's like, I'm gonna sit upon this grassy knoll and throw rocks at people. And I was like, and pelt them from afar. And I was like, grassy knoll and pelting people from far away, like it's kind of messed up, you know. And so it's not always a grassy knoll, but it was like, yeah. And this one of these particular translations of the Lucian text, I thought that was obviously on the nose for JFK or something, but
Yeah.
this play invoked a pageant burlesque, the comedy of Timon, that incorporates a number of striking features unparalleled elsewhere. The faithful steward, the crew of flatterers, the mock banquet, the miserly old man with a marriageable daughter, and the unrewarded soldier. Here, a disguise assumed by Lacus the steward after he's banished by Timon for his solitary council. Oh my God. That's where, yeah, there are comedic elements in this play. You know, like there is something about it. You know, like when it says like academic, it's like, I don't know, is this like our Nash, like Marlowe sort of thing going on here or something? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the trouble is that, anybody at university can write a play and they can put on a play at university, and if it somehow makes it in the documentary record, it's in the documentary record. But yeah, we could probably call it here. Feel like, yeah, we could talk ad nauseum about Timon. I just want, anybody that watches this, maybe hopefully some ideas have been piqued. Maybe they'll go read it or watch it themselves. I think this is a really potent play that needs to be put on more. No more Romeo and Juliet's or Much Ado remakes. I'm sick of that shit. Put on this. This is actually what people need to hear. This is what people our age need to hear, and want to hear, and like in harsh truths, like in the Nietzschean tragic sense, that like that they're harsh truths that will affirm life. That's what Apomantis is trying to do, and yeah, we don't need any more teenage fatalist bullshit like Romeo and Juliet. We don't need any more, yeah, Oodra Henry V. We need some Timon in our life. We need some Arden Faversham. We need some Dr. Faustus. I need people to make more plays and movies about the deeper cuts, the hidden gems. So yeah.
Yep. Blair, you hear that? It's one of these actor guys out there doing the work out there. So uh,
Yeah,
we'll fly up and
seriously.
see Dr. Faustus or Timon of Athens if you get that going. So we'll figure out a way to go see that for sure. I would love to see a Timon of Athens. So yeah, it's a play that we've talked about tons and tons of times on this channel. So hopefully y'all are hooked on this play just as much as we are, because yeah, there's still plenty of mystery in this play, and just still, yeah, we didn't even quite talk about all the epitaphs at the end and all that sort of mystery and conundrum or whatever, which you could probably have a whole stream on essentially too, right? So, but if y'all liked this discussion, I pitched to direct this next in Wilmington, North Carolina. Oh heck yeah, dude. Yeah. Love it. Yeah,
Super
keep me
cool.
posted on that. I will definitely shout that out too for anyone in North Carolina, and hopefully Chance and I making it up there maybe to see something like that. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But if y'all like this discussion tonight and had just as much as fun as we did, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. It really helps support the channel. If you'd like to super help, hey, the Discord link is down below. So if y'all want to come join the Discord now, it is open to the public. The Areopagus Book Club is still exclusive. So if you want to super support, Hooper support the channel, make sure you come join the Areopagus Book Club, where you're going to be hearing all this sorts of stuff as we dissect the plays and talk about all these illusions and talk about philosophy and all that kind of good stuff, right? Classics. And yeah, it's a good time. Only $9 a month, and it really, really helps up around here. So thank you to all the Patreon supporters that are already there. Thank you to the usual crew on Discord and everything. Y'all are the best. Looking forward to continue the sleuthing, of course. And Chance, you got any last words before I give them the famous ones?
You know, just Shakespeare is a postmodernist, and that's why he was better than everybody after him and before him.
We'll have to figure out how to turn the Tempest into a postmodern reading.
And truth is a motherfucker, as said in Oedipus. So, there you go.
All right, direct quote from the Greek. I've read it from myself. Yeah.
Yeah, this is why you guys got to get into classics. Go check out Brady's classics website. You can learn it there. I joke. Iliad first. He'll get to Sophocles later.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Awesome being here. Had a great time. As always, everyone, read it for yourself. Nullius in verbo. Everyone, good night.